The origins of Halloween can be traced back 2,000 years to the ancient Celts who lived in what we now know as Ireland. Now they would celebrate the festival of Samhain on October 31st, where they would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off evil spirits. You know, I actually still do that today. Only, you know, it's to keep away Girl Scouts who sell cookies. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III... Wait, really? There was at least 3 popes named Greg? Alright. Anyway, he made November 1st a day to celebrate saints. Now, this festival incorporated many of the traditions of Samhain and was known as All Hallowmas, or All Saints' Day. Now, the night before was known as All Hallows' Eve, which would later become Halloween. You know, I think I prefer All Hallows' Eve. I mean, I think ween at the end of anything just sounds silly. During the late 19th century, many immigrants came to the New World. This included millions of Irish fleeing a potato famine who would help popularise Halloween in America. It was also around this time that a push was made to make Halloween a more community holiday, steering away from its roots of ghosts and witchcraft. Wait, so when did the tradition start of dressing like sexy versions of children's storybook characters? Pumpkin carving has become a popular tradition during the Halloween season, and, just like the holiday itself, it has its origins tied to Ireland. It's a story that involves drinking, don't it? Well, it's believed that the jack-o'-lantern tradition began with the Celtic pagan practice of hollowing out turnips and potatoes, carving grotesque faces on them, and illuminating them with candles to ward off evil spirits. One popular legend has a terrible drunkard... See what I tell you? In the story of Stingy Jack, he was supposedly... What? Stingy. I'm reading it off the thing. Stingy Jack. Stingy? Isn't that spelled with a J?
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?
Jack was supposedly a blacksmith with a reputation for being a two-faced schemer without a bone of kindness in his body. Seems that the devil heard about this vile man and wanted his soul. One night, the devil met up with Jack at a public house where Jack offered up his soul for a drink. The devil turned himself into a coin to pay for said drink, but Jack snatched up the coin and put it in his pocket where he also kept a silver cross. Wait a minute. Why would a man this horrible be carrying around a silver cross? You know, I've been particularly awful this week. I might run into the devil. Where's me cross, eh? The cross prevented the devil from changing back until he made a deal with Jack, agreeing not to claim Jack's soul for 10 years. Well, 10 years later, the devil came for his soul, finding him on a country road. Jack agreed to go with the devil if the devil would get him an apple from a nearby tree. No, there is no way the devil's dumb enough to believe this bloke a second time. The devil jumped into the tree. What a knob! Wait, you don't think the devil watches this, do you? While the devil was in the tree, Jack placed crosses around it, or carved crosses into the bark, depending on the story, preventing the devil from leaving it. Oh, okay, so now this drunkard has had the forethought to carry multiple crosses on his person?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Jack made the devil promise not to collect his soul when he finally died. When Jack died a short time later, he was too unsavoury to get into heaven, and he couldn't get into hell because the devil was a man of his word. It's not something you expect to find yourself saying, is it? The devil gave Jack an ember of hellfire to light his way through the darkness back to earth, where he would be forced to wander forever. Jack placed the ember in a hollowed out turnip, which he kept on his person. Yeah. Crosses and turnips, eh? Must be an Irish thing.
Saints and stars.
It is believed that the Irish referred to the ghostly figure of Jack as Jack of the Lantern, which would eventually become shortened to Jack-o'-lantern. The tradition would find its way to America via immigrants, where pumpkins would replace turnips. Good thing, too. Could you imagine what a turnip spice latte would taste like? Witchcraft, it's a broad term that actually varies depending on the culture and society that you're speaking of, but It's generally associated with the practice of magic for either good or ill purposes.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch? Who, me?
Witches are very prominent in pop culture, ranging from hideous hags who serve the devil to good-natured housewives that use magic with a twitch of their nose. While witches were often seen as evil by early Christians, carrying out sinister deeds with magic, most were just natural healers who were treated unjustly by those who misunderstood them. Yeah. I mean, back then, how did they even prove witchcraft, you know? It's not like today when you can just watch any of David Blaine's street magic and know he's in league with Lucifer.
What makes you think she's a witch?
Well, she turned me into a newt. I got better.
It's not exactly known when the concept of witchcraft first came about, but one of the earliest records of a witch is in the Bible. Yeah, that's right, Jesus was a total man-witch. Yeah, healing the sick, right, making magic seafood buffets, walking on water. What do you mean you're not talking about Jesus? But he did all the magic. Miracles? Well, if a miracle's not a form of witchcraft, I don't know what is. In the first book of Solomon, believed to be written between the 10th and 8th centuries BC, it tells the story of King Saul seeking the witch of Endor to summon the spirit of the dead prophet Samuel. The witch of Endor? King Saul was seeking assistance to defeat the Philistine army. Unfortunately, Samuel's prophecy was that Saul and his sons would die. The next day, Saul's sons were killed in battle and Saul committed suicide. Yeah, I bet the witch was blamed for all that.
Understand what I'm saying?
Other verses in the Bible condemn witches, divination and contacting the dead, with the most notable being Exodus chapter 22, verse 18, which reads, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." Did Shakespeare write the Bible?
Now I've heard everything.
During the 15th century, the fear of witches spread rapidly after the publication of the Malleus Maleficarum, which roughly translates to the Hammer of Witches. Oh, so some sort of medieval sex novel then, eh?
You know, in the short time we've been together, you have demonstrated every loathsome characteristic of the male personality and even discovered a few new ones.
The book labelled witchcraft as heresy and became the authority for Catholics and Protestants trying to seek out witches amongst them. It became one of the best-selling books in Europe for more than 100 years, second only to the Bible. I mean, I get why the Bible is number one. I mean, that thing is full of lewd acts. You sure this isn't a sex book then?
You die first.
After the release of the Malleus Maleficarum, up to around 80,000 suspected witches were put to death between 1500 and 1660 AD. Single women, widows, and women on the margins of society were often accused and executed by hanging or being burned at the stake. I don't remember learning all that at university.
Let me introduce you to your new defense against the dark arts teacher. Me.
As the witch-hunting craze started to wane in Europe, it began to rise in the New World, with one of the most notable events happening in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. 1692? Isn't that when Columbus sailed the ocean blue?
You blockhead!
While not the first of the 13 colonies to go on a hunt for witches, that honour went to Connecticut in 1647 for executing Ulse Young of witchcraft, Salem is the most notorious for the amount of people accused and executed. During the Salem witch trials, 150 people were accused of witchcraft and 18 were executed. Tragically, those that pled not guilty were the ones tried and executed, while those pleading guilty mostly survived. How did that work? You have been accused of practicing witchcraft. How do you plead? Well, what happens if I plead guilty? Well, you'll be jailed. Your property will be seized by the Crown until a higher court later realises that these proceedings are all a load of bollocks, at which point your property will be returned to you and you'll receive a heartfelt apology. That don't sound that bad. I mean, what happens if I plead not guilty then? I'm so glad you asked, really. We go to trial, where you shall face your accusers, who can present easily faked evidence, pretty much guaranteeing your conviction, at which point your property will be seized by the Crown, you shall be promptly put to death, though I should point out that eventually your family will have your property returned to them, along with a heartfelt apology. What if I just don't submit a plea at all? Yes, no plea. Well, we crush you with stones until you submit a plea or die. You know what? Just put me down for guilty. Yeah, guilty. I'll do the witchcraft all the time. Yeah, I'm so big in the witchcraft, you know. In fact, I did it on Tuesday. I did the witchcraft, twice, actually. So you may want to put me down for double. Excellent. I'll just mark that down in the ledger. I would like to mention, though, that you get bonus points if you decide to take someone else down with you. Someone you don't like, perhaps? The Puritans were already a superstitious lot living in tumultuous times. So when 9-year-old Elizabeth Parris and 11-year-old Abigail Williams began having violent fits and uncontrollable outbursts, witchcraft was to blame. More young women began to exhibit symptoms, followed by the first 3 women, Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba, being accused of witchcraft. Tituba, eh? She like the Madonna of the witch trials. What? She was a South American slave owned by the father of Elizabeth Parris. So not like Madonna then. More and more people were accused of witchcraft, who in turn accused others of witchcraft, and things just spiraled out of control until finally public support started to turn on the trials, prompting Governor Phipps to dissolve the courts and pardon those in prison for witchcraft. The colony would later pass legislation restoring the good names of those condemned and providing restitution for their heirs, but it was all just a bit too late. Also, at what point did people start thinking it was a good idea to dress their children up as something with such a tragic background? It's Halloween! Time to get dressed up and go get some candy! Do you want to be a ghost, or do you want to be a witch? What's a witch? Generally a single woman with pagan beliefs that was hunted down and burned alive. Although sometimes they could also be the most devout of Puritans who was accused of cohorting with the devil, with no proof, by the way, and then hanged. Yeah, I'll just be a ghost. That's not to say there haven't been witches in history that used their beliefs for nefarious purposes, but the majority has definitely been disproportionately impacted by outside perceptions. Modern-day witches of the Western world practice Wicca, which is an official religion in the United States and Canada. Wiccans believe in peace and balance with nature and humanity. Unfortunately, even modern witches sometimes deal with fear and persecution that can result in death. Well, this is ending on a real downer, isn't it? When are we going to start talking about black cats and that sort of stuff? What do you mean we're not? What am I wearing these ears for then? Black cats have been synonymous with witches for a long time, but it is commonly thought that they were most notably connected from the European and Salem witch trials. Those suspected of witchcraft were often identified by the fact that they owned a cat or other animal. It is believed that the animal would do the witch's bidding, or was in fact the witch in disguise. Now you see, that's just ridiculous, okay? Because I don't care if magic's involved or not. A cat does no one's bidding but its own.
No! Get him! No!
While a number of different small animals have been associated with witches as familiars, cats were considered the most evil because of their nocturnal and independent natures. I mean, they're not wrong. They are evil. In fact, the witches probably did the cat's bidding.
Now, get the spell book. Come on, move it!
Candy corn is one of the most divisive confections in the history of the world. You either hate it, or you like it just enough to tolerate it once a year. Very few die-hard fans, I feel. What? It's just marshmallows flavoured like candy corn. It's thought that candy corn was invented in the 1880s by Wonderly Candy Company employee George Renninger. Now, Wonderly was the first company to produce this confection, but they were shortly followed by the Golitz Candy Company, known today as the Jelly Belly Candy Company. Now, back then, the whole cooking process was done by hand. A sugar and corn syrup based mixture was cooked in a large kettle, then dumped into buckets called runners, then poured into moulds shaped like corn kernels by men walking backwards known as stringers. That sounds exhausting. I mean, I'm tired just talking about it. Candy corn is primarily associated with autumn due to actual corn's relationship to the fall harvest. In the 1920s, it was actually nicknamed chicken feed, and it was sold in boxes with a rooster on the cover. How did this become popular with kids again? It seems candy corn really took off in the 1950s when people started giving out individually wrapped candy to trick-or-treaters on Halloween. And thanks to that, nowadays we've got candy corn flavoured marshmallows, Oreos, M&Ms, coffee, vodka martinis, candy corn vodka. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is a story by American author Washington Irving and first published in 1819 as part of a collection of Irving's essays and short stories called The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon Gent. Who's Geoffrey Crayon? What you call me? You're a pseudonym. I've got a few choice words about your mum as well.
Uncool, bruh.
The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is very popular around Halloween and tells the tale of schoolmaster Ichabod Crane, who goes missing from the Dutch settlement of Terrytown in the Glen of Sleepy Hollow after a run-in with the fabled Headless Horseman. Not only did this story make Irving a known literary name in his own time, but it also made Sleepy Hollow a destination which is still popular today, especially during the harvest season. Wait, you're saying that Sleepy Hollow is a real place then? Yeah, right. I suppose you're going to tell me that Ichabod Crane was a real person as well. Irving used real people and locations for inspiration in his stories. He would spend much of his life living in Terrytown, hence why the story takes place around that area, and the people he would meet throughout his days travelling would become characters in his stories. Ichabod Crane is believed to be named for an army captain that Irving met in Sackett's Harbour, while the character itself was modelled after Irving's friend, rural schoolmaster Jesse Merwin. Wait, was Merwin murdered by a headless ghost?
Well, I mean, if he was, I didn't do it.
I wasn't asking you. Wait, if you're a Hessian, aren't you supposed to be German?
Maybe. Do you know German, for I'm going to take your head while you sleep?
Ich werde nehmen... What? Hang on. He's threatening me. What do you mean, so?
You gonna cry? Huh? Little crybaby's gonna cry?
The character of Katrina Van Tassel was also based on a real person. Irving had stayed briefly with the Van Tassel family and asked if he could base a character in his story off their daughter Katrina. Well, yeah, at least she gets out all right, marrying the brawny Brom Bones at the end. I mean, if I was that army captain and read I was a superstitious coward, I'd lose me
Lose your what?
Me marbles?
Are you asking me or telling me?
Yes, no. What's correct?
I think you've already lost your marbles.
There's only speculation on where Irving got the inspiration for the Headless Horseman in the story, but there are a couple of likely candidates. He spent a lot of time in Europe, where Headless Horsemen feature prominently in German, Irish, British and Scandinavian legends. Typical American, right? Take something European and then up the budget to make it sexy. It's not a lot of Tam O'Shanter movies being made these days, but Sleepy Hollow's still a hot commodity, right, with old Hoddybod Crane and everyone writing him into their sweaty fan fictions. What? Well, there must be. I can't be the only one writing them.
It's all true.
Another thought is that Irving based the Headless Horseman on an actual soldier. In the story, the horseman is an Hessian whose head had been carried off by a cannonball in a nameless battle during the Revolutionary War. The British did use Hessian Jaegers during raids on Patriot militias. They were renowned sharpshooters and horsemen. As the story goes... Wait. What story am I talking about? Irving's story or the story that Irving's story's based on? What do you mean you don't know? Where's the script supervisor? What? Dead? How did he die?
What? He looked at me funny.
Irving's horseman may have been based on the body of a decapitated Hessian soldier found and buried by the Van Tassel family in an unmarked grave in the old Dutch burying ground of Sleepy Hollow. Sounds to me like the only part of this story that Irving came up with was the horseman coming back from the grave. You know, provided that's made up.
I'll never tell.
Today we're exploring the history of vampires. Vampires are mythological creatures of the night that have incredibly long unlives and feed on human blood. They're known to have incredible powers, but also some severe allergies that no amount of Claritin can cure. Have they tried sunblock? You know, we've made incredible leaps in that technology since the olden times.
I don't burn so good these days, bloodsucker.
Vampires are very prominent in pop culture, more so than some of their other spooky contemporaries, such as witches and werewolves. But where did these sexy immortal icons come from? The answer is Eastern Europe, and these creatures were very different than what we think of them today. The original translation of the word meant ghost monster. The first written reference to what could be considered a vampire came from Russia around 1047 AD. The word vampire itself first made its written appearance in 1725 in Vienna, Austria. Wait, the same place Schwarzenegger is from? Huh. Come on, do it, stake me, do it now, stake me, I'm here! No. German royals have been hearing disturbing stories about the borderlands. Well, I'll say, that movie was terrible. What? The borderlands were eastern regions, recently taken back from the Ottoman Empire. Oh. The Ottoman Empire? Sounds comfy. The military was sent to investigate the area and submitted a report in 1725 about a creature that was terrorising the local area. The body of the suspected vampire was exhumed, staked and burned to prevent it from coming back to life. This resulted in the idea of vampire existence spreading across Europe like a plague. Like a plague. Well, you'll laugh later.
Deserve to die, boy.
Diseases, and more importantly, medieval people's lack of knowledge about diseases, likely helped spread the vampire myth, as well as the myths of other walking dead. Infectious diseases were key in spreading the myths of the undead. When disease were in a household, the initial afflicted person was believed to be the vampire, coming back and feeding on the rest of the family before moving on to other victims. Come on, mate. You wake up as an immortal bloodsucker, the last thing you're going to do is go home and risk, getting guilt-tripped by your parents into making them vampires too. Then you're stuck with them forever. What? We get along fine. Why do you ask?
Vampires don't do dishes.
Other diseases that were likely attributed to vampires were porphyria, tuberculosis, pellagra and rabies. Porphyria is a blood disease that causes sensitivity to sunlight and can create blisters on the skin when exposed to the sun. Some symptoms of the disease can also be temporarily relieved by ingesting blood. How do you even find that out? Oi, you got any blood I could borrow? For what? I got this sun allergy and I'm all out of aloe. Blood's a bit thick, like a bomb, so I figured I'd give it a try. And if it don't work, I could always drink it. That don't sound like borrowing to me. Pellagra would thin the skin and could also result in sensitivity to sunlight, but this disease didn't make it to Europe until they started trading with America, so it's unlikely to have helped in spreading the myth there. A rabies outbreak in the 18th century would be attributed to both vampires and werewolves. Rabies symptoms included insomnia, biting and general sensitivities that could result in aversions to sunlight, water and garlic. Ooh. I think I'm going to use rabies as an excuse the next time I don't want to eat mum's spaghetti. What? So what if it's lethal? If I fake my death, I'll never have to eat mum's cooking again.
How are those maggots?
Tuberculosis, also known as consumption, was a wasting disease which made it appear that victims of the disease were being fed on by a vampire, resulting in them wasting away. One of history's most notable vampires was the result of tuberculosis. Mercy Brown was the daughter of a farmer and died to the disease in Rhode Island in the late 1800s. Many members of the Brown family and the surrounding community were also victims of the disease, but Mercy was blamed for all the deaths. It didn't help that, due to being entombed above ground during the winter, when she was exhumed, her body didn't show the expected decay. Mercy's heart was cut out, burned, and the ashes were fed to a sick brother, who died shortly after. Well, yeah. I'm so sick. Here, eat this. What is it? It's the ashes of your dead sister's heart. I'm actually feeling much better. In fact, I think I'm going to go for a run. Yeah. Many cultures of the time would dig up the bodies of suspected vampires, and it's believed the natural stages of decomposition led to the belief in the undead. Receding gums would make the teeth seem longer, and the drying out and tightening of the skin would make it appear that hair and fingernails were continuing to grow. What also didn't help was the occasional misdiagnosis of death, resulting in people waking up after being buried or entombed. That would be a rough day. Right, imagine being so sick that you're pronounced dead, waking up in a coffin, making a ruckus to get out only to be staked, burned and have your ashes put in a smoothie.
Has anybody here read a real book about vampires, or are we just remembering what some movie said?
Look, all this factual stuff is fine, but when do we get to the good stuff, right? Like the Count. What? No, not Dracula. The Count from Sesame Street.
Two bats. Three fabulous flyers!
The more modern idea of vampires came from 18th and 19th century European literature, no doubt inspired by the local myths and folklore. There was vampires in poems, plays and novels, the most famous being Dracula by Bram Stoker. It's believed that Stoker got the name of the titular character from a real person, Vlad Dracula, or Vlad the Impaler as he would be known the world over, though his mates called him the Vladster. What? What do you mean that's not true? Do you know any of the Vladsters, mates? No, I didn't think so. Vlad was born in Transylvania, the son of Vlad Dracul, which in medieval Romanian translated to Vlad the Dragon, a title Vlad II got after becoming a member of the Order of the Dragon, a fraternity bent on getting the Ottoman Empire out of Europe. Vlad III, or Vlad Dracula, would have translated to Vlad, son of Dracul, or son of the Dragon. What? To heck with all this vampire stuff, son of the dragon sounds fierce. What's that? In modern Romanian, Dracul means devil. Well, I mean, son of the devil still sounds cool. It's a conversation starter at the very least.
I'm Richard, and you are?
So not interested.
Vlad Dracula would be the ruler of Wallachia off and on from 1448 to 1462. He got his popular nickname, the Impaler, because impaling his enemies on wooden stakes was his favourite way of dispatching them. Is that like through the back or through the bum? Because one of those is way worse than the other. There are legends about Vlad that he liked to dine while surrounded by his impaled victims and dip his bread in their blood, though it's unknown if there's any truth to those tales. It could be that some of Vlad's lore inspired certain aspects of Bram Stoker's own Dracula, like the drinking of blood and only being killed by a stake through the heart, but since a lot of those superstitions about vampires already existed, it might just be a coincidence. It's also thought that another real person might have inspired parts of Stoker's story, and that is the Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Oh, I'll bet she inspired all the sexy stuff. What's that? She killed loads of young women between the 16th and 17th centuries to drink and bathe in their blood in an effort to preserve her own youth. So, not sexy then. Dracula would be the most important work of fiction when it came to shaping the modern idea of vampires and their powers. The book spawned multiple film adaptations, including the 1922 silent film Nosferatu, which featured the first depiction of a vampire being killed by sunlight, and the 1931 film Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, which, most Halloween-style vampire costumes is based on. In that film, Count Dracula displayed a number of powers and weaknesses that would become synonymous with vampires, including mind control, shape-shifting, creating other vampires and non-vampire slaves, casting their reflection, and aversion to crosses. So, Bram Stoker didn't create the glittery vampires then. More recent versions of vampires on screen and telly have changed them from monstrous villains to more humanised characters. The soap opera Dark Shadows, that ran from 1966 to 1971, featured Barnabas Collins, a vampire in search of his lost love Josette. In 1976, Anne Rice gave the world an interview with a vampire in her book Interview with the Vampire. Suppose I could have worded that better.
For one who has not lived even a single lifetime, You're a wise man.
Anne Rice's vampires were far more emotional than previous vampires were depicted, almost seeming human, but with enhanced speed, strength and senses. She really set the scene for the romantic leads vampires would become in the years that followed. Vampires also brought the sexy being unnaturally beautiful, which is why I guess everyone wants to have sex with vampires nowadays. Wait, so vampires can be detestably hideous or so freakishly beautiful that they can ensnare you with a stare? Is there no in between? I want you to make me a vampire. No can do. Why not? Because you're too average. I can work with ugly or handsome, but this... Vampires actually exist in the modern day. Well, normal people that call themselves vampires. They don't have powers, nor do they burst into flames in the sunlight or go around biting victims in the night. They drink small amounts of blood from willing donors with the belief that it keeps them healthy. So, seems not all modern vampires are sexy, eh? What are your thoughts on vampires? Is there a particular myth that you prefer over others? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, and I'll see you all in the future. There are legends about Vlad that he liked to dine while surrounded by his impaled victims and dip his bread in their blood, though it's unknown if any of these... Irving had stayed briefly with the Van Tassel family and asked if he could base a character in his story off their daughter Katrina. Yeah, well, at least she gets out alright, marrying the brawny Bombones. The brawny... Brombones, not Bombones. Old Bombones.
I mean, it isn't all bad being headless. I never have a bad hair day, and I'm always ready for a photo op.
During the 15th century, the fear of witches spread rapidly after the publication of the Malarial, Maleficent, Malefius, Maleficarum, Malleus Maleficarum. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoy this video, please consider giving it a like and a share. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon to be notified when more Brief History of the Past videos go up. And make sure you have yourself a spooky and safe Halloween. Bye!